this is the first track that we're going to be going over tonight. It is called FMSU. I really wanted to go over this track because I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but mixing down drum and bass is the most ridiculously bonkers thing to do. Just because there's, especially in like a very hectic drop like this, there's just a lot of things going on really quickly, and it's a giant balancing act just to try and get everything to fit, come through when it needs to come through, and all that fun jazz. For the most part, I mean, the intro and like verses are pretty simple. It's just like a bunch of more like atmospheric elements going on. We got some atmospheric elements going on. We can hear here. It's like really not that much going on. Just a bunch of fun layering and samples. We got some, I believe this is where this like little cool vocal thing that like took and well, I'm pretty sad. Took and just like kind of looped it to make it sound like cool and shit. So it's like yeah, I don't know, I was pretty proud of that. We got all the vocals up here. We got this cool little modular thing that I use for the break before the build. It is actually a it's from this group of plugins. I can't remember where they're from. I think the name is somewhere. Yeah, about. Can't remember who made these plugins, but they're really cool. They're kind of like more like emulate old school synths. Sorry, moving the laptop over so I can like see the chat. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. It's an old school emulator. This is really just kind of emulating old modular synth racks and using it for some fun routing to get some like really dissonant arps and shit going. I don't know. This stuff is honestly, it's a little more on the like nerdy, boring side, but it's, I don't know, you can get some fun stuff out of it. So once you go modular and like have full control over like where the signal is going and like how it's being affected, you can get some really cool stuff out of it. Like, I mean, I've basically used this same patch for the last drop, which we'll get to that later. But yeah, no. Because I mean, the main sound just basically comes from the mod. Everything that's going on here is just kind of like beefing it up a little bit, just little tiny bits here and there. Because I mean, without it, and then with it, and these are all just like simple EQ. We have an LFO tool, which is just cutting out the tail ends and making it a little, giving it a little more of a transient to the sound. And we have this VR fat rack that I got from somewhere. I can't remember where. EQ to cut out the like harsh little tones around like 1 to 3K is really a troublesome area. So I always try to like make sure nothing's getting too built up in that region, because that can really, I don't know, fatigue the ears really. What else we got here? We got Gullfoss. I mean, I don't really know why I had this on here. I think this was just the last ditch effort to make it sound a little better. We have this audio effect. I believe this is just for adding some like width and texture. If Serum Effects will load. Yeah, just adding some texture, some phasing to it. Oh yeah. Distorting a phaser. Ha 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 ha. That's what the pros do. We got Portal. I believe this is just adding some chorus. Thank you. Eliminate. Compressed reverb to give it some space. Another EQ to cut out all this fun stuff. Just like repeat, you know, glue compressor at the end to beef it the fuck up. And then yeah, these are all just like kind of utility stuff. Yeah, the routing inside the modular, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I don't know. Routing stuff in modular synths are kind of like, I don't know. I find it's more fun to do than to like actually discuss what you're doing, because when it comes down to modular synth, it's I I don't know what word I'm trying to use. I would say it's the art of it is in how you can take just like a simple routing and make the craziest sounds out of it. I don't know. I'm not fully versed in modular synths, but I do enjoy playing with them. Okay, we're gonna undo. There we go. Yeah, we got some subs just for the... Yeah. We got some extra building stuff. Really quick, let's get into the chat just to see what you guys... like I said, if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about, please ask in the chat. I'll try and check as much as I can. Does it stand for... Are you specific about what you put in your sides and what is mono? Or do you just spread things according to ear? It's... when dealing with width, I found it is best... It is good to be aware of like what you're making wide and what is mono, or what you're making mono. I mean, obviously, like things like subs and basses tend to work best in mono. Like adding maybe a little bit of width to a sub, you know, people will be like, "Oh, that's bad. Don't do that." Yar yar yar. But I mean, if you add like a tiny bit of chorus to a sub, you know, you'd be surprised at what kind of results you can get. Besides that, though, I don't know. I tend to have everything that is higher frequency a little wider. I do not. Oh wait, yeah, I do. I have it on this one. I have a little wide rack that I actually like to use a lot, where it's in kind of like. It's really meant to be more of like a side enhancer. It's where it's in most of my like high frequency elements to it. All it is just a pure side signal.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
I mean, you can see here, it's sending anything to this will just send the side information to it. So like say with the modular thing that we have going on here. Since, you know, I have some chorus and reverb to it, it'll have some side information. When you send it to this wide, it will just send that side information, or only the side information will be picked up. So you can, I don't even know if it'll come through on the stream, but that is all the information that is on the sides. And what this rack does is that it accentuates it, cuts out the low end, compresses it a little bit so it makes it a little louder, side chains it to my Ghost, like a side chain trigger, whatever you want to use, and then yeah, it's turned down really low in the mix. All this is that it just boosts the side information of all of your synths up just a tiny bit. You know, it just adds some natural width to the entire track without like putting things too out of phase. I mean, you don't want to go crazy and put everything to the wide send 100%. You want to be smart about it. You know, like say for this one, I think it was at what? Yeah, it was at 7 point, but at the same time, I was trying to push the sides of this modular thing. Yeah, any other questions? What advice would you give yourself when you first started producing? Honestly, if you're like first getting into producing, I'd say the best thing to do would be to read up on everything you possibly can. There's a lot that goes into everything, whether it be compression, EQ, to just how sound is affected by these things, that I think it's important to just do as much research as you can. Like, I'm not saying you just have to do research first and then you can start producing. It's more like, you know, read up on like what a compressor does, like read up on what the ratio does, the attack, the release, and kind of, I don't know, play around with those elements. I would say compression is the last thing you would want to learn. It's not the last thing you'd want to learn about, but it's the last thing that would be like, or it's gonna be the hardest thing to like fully grasp what it does. I guess that's more of like a subtle use of compression, but I mean, just in general. So I'm going off on like a lot of tangents, but in general, I would say just read up as much as you can, put in as much work as you can into producing, and yeah, just have fun. When did I start producing? I started producing in, I believe it was 2011. I mean, there were a few years there where like I wasn't fully producing. It was more like just kind of dicking around for a few years before I went to school for it. But yeah, I would say like 2011 is when I started playing around with producing. And then it would have been 2014, 2013 when I started taking things pretty seriously. Let's say about like 7-8 years been producing. You know, we're getting way off track. Oh, we can keep reading some questions. We can keep answering some questions. Is there a particular reason your ratios on the compressors are super high? Okay, so, like say when you see these two compressors, they're serving different purposes. With this first compressor, what it is doing is kind of catching. It's basically acting more of a limiter for this one. Just kind of catching all the side information. This one. Man, that is a really... Okay, let's go over here. Yeah, this is meant to be more of like almost a limiter. While this compressor is meant to be the sidechain. What I like to do for my sidechains is I will set up a ghost track like this that has a very sharp transient on it. Like, say for this instance, we're using the same kick that I'm using, like this kick sample. We're bringing it up here and warping it to beats mode transient, so it's playing the transient only and then cutting everything so it's just the transient, so then you can even hear. And I'm using that as my sidechain trigger, which, yeah, for my sidechains, I just like to have it be like super, super duper cut. Like, cut everything when that transient plays. Just to let the transients of the kick and the snare come through, you know, a little better. What, do you use Serum? Occasionally. I've been dabbling around more with like Phase Plan and Ableton's operator. So yeah, okay. So I'm getting way off topic. Let's get into the drop, because the drop is where everything gets really, really, really fun. Okay, so we have the build. Whoops. Also, shout out to friggin', what is it, Nectar's delay. Using just OTTing the delay, so it just creates that like super, like drum and bass jungle, like reggae style delay on it. Yeah, fun shit.
How did you do that?
Okay, so now we're getting into the fun part. There's a good reason why I froze all these tracks, because there's just a lot of shit going on. Okay, so first off, we have that first lead part is separated into two parts. Let's just focus on the drop, because we got a bunch of shit layered up for the hits. We got a Sophie, I believe it's just like a percussion loop from the Sophie's sample pack. Just, you know, modulated, or not modulated, warped and destroyed a little bit. We got this other layered hit. And I believe, yeah, this one's this is a super stretched out, or not super stretched out, but it's a granular, warped, I can't remember what the original sample was. I think it was something I just recorded. Anywho, so yeah, all those three elements top together. Yeah. And then we got the lead, the first little lead with its fun little layer. Together you get, and of course with the sub. But yeah, for the actual lead itself, we are going to group these together and just kind of reverse engineer this a little bit. So this is the original sound that kind of came out of everything. Obviously, let's just go one at a time because that's kind of the best way I can describe this. Fab Filter, this was just a kind of... Oh, wait, no, I remember where I got this sound from now. Okay. This was actually... The basis of this sound was something that I made, like... that would have been, like, 5 or 6 years ago. And I just kind of took whatever I made, like, 5 or 6 years ago, and applied whatever processing chain I was using around the start of this song. Just to like beef it up. I believe the Pro Q was a remnant of the original sound. But yeah. I think it was just, yeah, I think I adjusted it a little bit just to cut out like this part. Really so I could just focus on this. And have some of this like high information. I'll just leave it there. Yeah, OTT to beef it the freak up. Cut out that low end and accentuate the frequencies that I want to accentuate, especially going into the distortion. Because a fun little thing that you can do with distortion is, if you distort, a fun thing to do is to put a distortion, and then before that distortion, put an EQ. And think of the EQ as a, like say in this instance, Ableton's EQ8, think of it as an 8-band filter that you can just make the craziest shapes. You can accentuate frequencies that you like, hard dip others that you don't. What this is doing is basically just filtering out the sound into what you want or what would result in cool artifacts, running it through the distortion to get said artifacts. I mean, without this, just cleans it up, makes it a little clearer. Yeah, then we got EQ8 to cut out some more low end because Trash 2 likes to introduce a lot of low end. OTT again, because fuck it. EQ it again, get rid of those like annoying frequencies. EQ8, more frequencies getting rid of, more frequencies getting rid of. I have this little width adding rack that I made. It's basically just a Haas effect with chorus on it. Because the problem with using the Haas effect, if you guys don't know, is whenever you duplicate, is whenever you have a sound that is mono, you duplicate it. So you have two sounds that are mono. Hard pan, one to the left and one to the right. Basically creating a... Or no, it's hard left, hard right, so you have like a... what do you call it? No. Hard left, hard right, and then you delay one of them, so you have this like kind of quasi-stereo effect. Only problem is that it totally ruins the phase of your sound. So I just added a chorus to minimize that effect a little bit. And yeah, then I just don't turn it up all the way. It's kind of like just adding a little bit of width to a sound that's like almost completely mono. And then yeah, EQ weights, yeah, it's just like really subtle shit. Yeah, and then glue compressor at the end to just beef everything up, and yeah. Easy as adding a bunch of EQs to get rid of unnecessary shit, and yeah. Any questions so far? You guys following along? What is making the sound wide? The sound whine. How does the sound whine? Yeah, basically though, what I like to do is whenever I have some like really complex processing like this, well, I guess there's not like a whole lot of complex post-processing. It's mainly just getting rid of like frequencies that I don't like as I'm going. I'll usually take like the core of like what makes this no, what am I trying to say? No, I take all that set back. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, then just for this layer, just EQing. A fun trick to do that I only found out recently is that if you have a sound like say for instance, this sound, the original one was just way too wide, like, it was just too much. Like, I don't know, I just didn't like how wide that was. So what you can do, this doesn't work with all super wide sounds, but what you can do to make it mono, without kind of ruining the phase, because I mean, like, if you just make this mono by itself, you lose a lot of that, like, you just lose a lot of information because you're summing it from like a stereo signal to a mono signal. But what you can do is, before you bounce it down to mono, is to pan it either left or right, so you get the full either left or right image, and you make that mono. So in this instance, I just took the left, made it mono. There we go. It's better than just this, where it sounds like an out of phase mono. But this, it's like an out of phase mono compared to a more in phase mono, if that makes sense. And then these are just, adding back in width, cutting out the low end. Easy peasy. Let's freeze this shit again. Come on. And boom. Yep. The other sounds, because like, the cool thing about this drop is that it just kind of takes that like central core idea that like, it just kind of runs with that for a while. So it's cool as that. Because what I really wanted for this song was, I don't know if you guys know the song Bass Symptom? Wait. Bass Symptom, Bass Symptom. It's this drum and bass song that has this like, almost, it's not really a fake out drop, it's more like the build is just the drop idea, just kind of starting from a really small, like boom, 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 and then it evolves into this, like, those same 4 notes, just almost like starting with a really small filter, then expanding into this like big ass lead that becomes the drop. It just builds an intensity. There's not one fucking riser in that whole build, but it still hits so hard when the highly recommend you guys looking at. I think it's Bass Symptom. Maybe someone in here would know that. Do you have any advice, tip for making turnarounds, fills, to make the track sound cohesive, flow better? I do enjoy making fills. What I will usually do for fills, where are they at? Yeah, I guess the fills in this song are pretty simple because I'm just using that Sophie sample. Yeah, let me see if I can get this. Nope, can't do that. Okay, so let's try this. Yeah, that's pretty much all the fills in this first drop, with like maybe a few little drum fills in here. Nope, not even like a, here we go. Yeah, not really a lot of fills. Yeah, I guess it really depends, because you don't need to have these big bombastic fills. In fact, I think a big problem with a lot of music that like up-and-comers are making is that there are way too many fills. The drops have less like cohesive ideas and more just like, I can make this sound, fill, I can make this sound, fill, I can make this sound. And it's less like a cohesive song, There's no like evolving themes or shit just kind of happens and then doesn't happen again. If that makes sense. Yeah, Bass Symptom. Yes, Mr. Frankie, Bass Symptom. Listen to that shit, because there's, like, no real build. It's just the drop that builds in intensity until it, like, fully drops. That was kind of the idea behind this first part of the drop. What's cool is that when the drums come back in... Whoops. Just keep it going, and then the switch. Which this was actually pretty lazy on my part, I'm not gonna lie. But I have this rack that was... It was kind of like a collaboration rack, I call it, between me and Blank, that we kind of put together the first time I actually went down to Australia. It's just called the X Extra rack. Basically what it does is that it just super distorts shit. Yeah, because, like, without it... With it... I kind of like to call it the mid-tempo rack. So I can't really give it out to you guys, but just know that that's a thing that I use sometimes. It's kind of a cheat code, but also kind of not, because it really only works for very specific things. So we got that going. Ha! Yeah. Okay, sorry, let's refreeze that. We have another layer going with that. I think it's just, yeah, company fucking, it's using the XX Extra rack again, but the basis is, I think, yeah, just a company synth. Yeah, I mean, like... Yeah. And then, yeah, EQing, stuff I want, stuff I don't want. Yeah. I will say with my EQs, I know it seems really confusing when I do shit like this, where, like, I have one EQ and then I have another one. But what it really is that, like, the second one is usually compensating for something in the overall mix that I'll hear wrong. Whereas, like, the first one is just listening to it by itself. It's like, oh, this needs the lows cut out, and it, like, needs a dip here, and there's way too much high end. But with the second one, it's usually like, okay, now I need, like, a little bit more, when I'm listening, like, to the whole mix down, it's like, okay, this needs a little bit of a push in this region, because it's not cutting through enough in the mix. Then, yeah, glue compressor usually at the end of most of my drop sounds, because it's just like a, kind of like a really, really good limiter. I love these vocal samples. Do you use stock Ableton comp for your sidechain, or do you use a separate VST? Nope, I use Ableton stock stock compressor for sidechaining using the using a ghost track, a track with just super quick transient that is muted, that is acting as the trigger for the sidechain. And the trigger is usually hitting on the kicks and snares. So, like, you got boom ba boom ba boom ba boom ba boom ba boom ba, which translates to which altogether is like I don't know. I like at the end of the day, what sidechain you use isn't. It's not as important as how you use it. These, like, anybody can, like, a compressor, at the end of the day, a compressor is a compressor. If you know how to use it, you'll be fine. If you don't know how to use it, it's very easy to misuse it, and make something sound like shit. The same thing can apply to literally everything. That's why I honestly like using stock plugins in Ableton, because at the end of the day, usually if, like, say I need to cut out something in the low end, just throw an EQ8 on there, cut out the low end, and call it a day. Yeah. Let's see, for the drums, I was super happy with these snares. Like, I believe the kick is pretty simple, yeah. Just, where did that come from? That's not it. It's a PMJP2 kick. I believe that's Josh Pant kick? I'm not sure. And yeah, so got that. The snares, I don't know, I've been layering up on snares lately. I really enjoy doing it. Yeah, this one got that like super like characteristic-y snare, and then I believe this is like the kind of just, yeah, it got like a super characteristic, super like, I don't know. When I usually layer stuff, I like to have something that has like, one sound or one layer that's like super characteristic and like gives a lot of character to a sound, and then one that's just like the straight sound. Because usually they'll complement each other really well. So, I mean, without this characteristic-y snare, it's just like, but then with it, just cuts through a little bit better. Also, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Noisia said this, but it's something I've been adapting into my most recent mixdowns. When it comes to snares, a really fun trick to do, if you're having trouble having the snare cut through the mix, is to boost and EQ the frequencies of the snare that sound like they don't work. So, like, say, for instance, if I were to group these together, it would be... like, maybe that. I'll just cut, like, boost right there. See, if you cut it, it just feels like a lot of the snares getting lost. But, like, just something about, like, boosting, the unwanted frequencies in the snare just make it stand out so much more. It makes it hit so much better. So maybe next time, if you're trying to get a snare to, like, really punch through, instead of boosting, like, the lows or the highs, maybe just, like, boost the mids. Boost the frequencies you wouldn't think about. Just be smart about it. Like, you don't, like, if your snare is super subby for some reason, and you boost the subs, that's not a good idea. But if you, like, boost the, like, 1K range, maybe, like, 800 to, like, 2K range, you might get some interesting results, and it might cut through the mix a little bit better. Yeah, so ungroup that. Get back to it. I believe the drop, like, these background percussion-y elements, honestly could have been a little bit better, but at that point in the track, I was kind of done with it. Done with this track. So we got just a super simple hi-hat loop. Or ride cymbal, whatever. Then we got another cymbal. More like characteristic-y one. And then I think this is just like a break to like kind of fill out the other stuff. Because you know drum and bass songs, they have like a lot of like ghost notes in them, you know? Yeah, all comes together like. Yeah, then the second part of the drop, it just kind of repeats. Got a little build.
How did you do that?
Oh yeah, if you're curious, that fill is literally just a Vengeance sample fill. That's it. You know what I've actually found, that like old Vengeance samples, they're so outdated that they're actually kind of cool now. Just saying, you didn't hear it from me. Like, even this fill-in. Watch, in like fucking 5-6 years. I don't know. Watch, like 10 years from now, somatic samples are considered like the old school retro way of making like super cool indie dubstep. Oh yeah, this section was super fun to make. So what this is this is actually the basis of this sound comes from messing with that first lead sound and adding what is my personal favorite sound design plugin of all time, and that would be, where you at? I know you in here. Ubic G. Gain and pitch. Yeah, it's like a granular. It's like a granular delay plus better pitch control. I don't know, it just creates these super cool tones with it. Like, just showing, like, say we got the original sound. I don't want to mess with the offset. The point is, once you start like really messing with everything, you get some really cool textures and tones out of it. And what you can do is that you can bounce all those super cool tones and textures out, continue adding to them, or not really continue adding to them, just chop them up, and you get some cool patterns. Like this is like, this is all chopped up from something I got from adding that granular plugin, and just kind of like, you know, recording it for a while. Yeah, and then just like chop it up, pitch some stuff up a little bit. Maybe stretch some stuff out. Like I think this one was a stretched out sound. And I think I have this little, I don't know, that's just like a super subtle, like, little extra layer. Do you add the max relive LFO to the grain delay? Do I add the max relive LFO to the grain delay? Who do you think you're talking to? Of course I do. What are the kick and snare synths? Now that's a good question. What those are what I use for my kicks and snares, obviously. What they are, they're just super simple compressors. They're actually preset compressors in Ableton that just add a subtle and very nice, I guess, just girth to the original sound. Don't like using the word girth, but it's basically just a not parallel compression. It's just like an extra layer compression and gain that you can add to a sound. Like, really, like, all I do for my kicks and snares nowadays, besides snares, sometimes I'll like layer them out like this, but like for kicks, I'll generally just like find a really good kick sample that I like, send it to my kick send, and then that's it. It's really as simple as just like, without it, it's super subtle, but it just adds the right amount of like punch to it. And it's the same thing with the snare. Just add a little bit to it and you'd be surprised. Like, with it, without it. Maybe we can do it a little better. So like, this is with the, yeah, this is with the kick and snare send. And then without it. It's just, it just pushes it that little bit extra more. Especially when you're working with songs that are like super loud and super heavy, like super like, oh, what do you call it? Like kind of wall of soundy. It's important to have your kick and your snare cut through everything. Cut through that wall of just sound. That's why I have super sharp compressors, usually on every send, besides like, you know, kick and snare. Didn't really use any other sends for this song, which I attribute to the fact that I started this song during the Jaws bus tour, and I just forgot to set up my sends on my laptop. But either way, Yeah. So that's pretty much all the first drop. Yeah, there's like a little bit of variation in that lead right here, but that's really just from like moving around the samples and pitching it. Like, really for this part, or no, I think this was a, yeah, but like for this section of the song, I could literally just be like, oh, I'm not really feeling that part. What about this one? And be like, maybe not that one right there. I can just be like, yeah. I don't know, I just like, I like setting up situations when I'm writing where I can like literally just move like small things to make big changes in the sound. It's a really cool, like, inspiring thing to do, in my opinion. Inspiring in the sense of like, ooh, that's a cool sound to use. So then you bounce it down, you use it for something else. So yeah, that pretty much covers the first drop. We'll quickly go over the second drop because I'm realizing I spent a lot of time on this song. So yeah, we got second build. If I didn't solo that one track. Now, pretty much second build, same as the first, but the difference being the final part of the build. Obviously, you know, build.
How did you?
So obviously a lot of shit changes with the second drop. First and foremost, the freaking kicks and snares. I knew as soon as like this kind of came together, it was like, oh, this is totally like super worked out, like almost peekaboo-y, ISO-XO knock to drop. So I definitely wanted those like old school snares. I actually got this from like an old, I think it's called the Hit Kit. I don't know. I have all of those snares, those like these various weird sounding snares that just kind of, if I want something like this, I'll go through this folder and find something like find something like one of those and then layer it with a more modern snare. You get some really, really nice results because that's just the original sound. And then I just had just a high end layer together. Gives it that cool, like, old school feeling. And you got that old school, like, kind of kick thing going on. For this, I used this transient enhancer. I can't remember where I got it from. I think it was from a different project. It's basically just a saturator, slight distortion. And then Decapitator is I used Drum Founder. Decapitator is a Sound Toys compression kind of distortion thing that they have. They have presets under drums called Drum Fatteners. They're really fun to use on like kind of old school sounding drums. Definitely recommend doing that. The actual drop is, like I mentioned earlier, or alluded to earlier, it's just that like, modular ARP? But just more fucking around with it. And I believe, using a bit of Ubik G grain in here. Yeah, here we go. Oh wait, no, I didn't use Ubik for this one. I used it for the second section. Yeah, I remember this part took a lot of just like tinkering to get just right. But yeah, it's basically just modulating some of the stuff in the modular V3, whatever. Like kind of adjusting the filter. Oh yeah, and then we got some width. Pretty cool shit, right? I think this one was just like literally just pitched up another octave. I don't remember what this is. Huh. What did that come from? I I can't remember. Point is, there was a background thing. I used the extra rack and some frequency shift just to get some, like, background noise. And what's cool about using frequency shifter for that kind of thing is that it adds a nice, unphasy width, to whatever sound you're adding frequency shifter to. Though, gotta be careful when you use it because sometimes that it tries to like phase correct, I think is the right term. I might just be talking out my ass. It like tries to phase correct and sometimes it can just make the sound super muddy. Either way, this one worked out because I wanted like a wide background synth or just kind of wide background noise going along with this. Like super subtle stuff. Yeah, and then for these fills, you know, just finding just little things here and there. Yeah, a lot of my fills are literally just like either taking bits of processing that I use from the leads and applying them to different channels, and then just throwing whatever I can find into them. I think this one was just... this one's literally just cutting out the lows. I believe... I think it was something I recorded earlier in the set. Yeah. Also want to point out I am super proud of these subs. Like I use this layered, like this white noise layered on a lot of other shit. Yeah, I think the key with subs like this is that you need that second layer, that like really noisy, really like, I don't know, I really like to use, oh, hey Omeo. I really like to use erosion and that kind of stuff for like just adding some like nice top end noise. I know it looks like a lot, but just turn this off or unfreeze it. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is just like experimenting. I usually just turn off after. Whoops. Oh, nope, come back. Come back, EQ8. Yeah. A fun trick to do is, whenever you're working on subs, if you want like a sub that really has a lot of impact to it, is to use Corpus, if you're using Ableton. Corpus kicks tight and tune it to the note of the song that you're writing. Or tune this knob to whatever note the sub is playing at a given time. So like say for instance this is playing E, so I have it set right at E. Basically what it is it's just like a saturator for subs. I guess it works best if you hear it on the actual sub. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so let's say we have the sub. That is with kick tight, without it. Without it, and now with kick tight. It just adds that like that next harmonic that just really drives it home. And of course, put the EQs back on. These EQs just like accentuate the two notes that I'm trying to get out of this sub are the fundamental and this extra harmonic. Really trying to push. And then another EQ8 just to, you know, cut out these top ends just in case some got through. And then the rest is this layer. Yeah, and then the second part just added some grain delay to it. Or grain, the cubic, whatever. No. Oh, no, I didn't. What did I do with this part? Oh, boy, guys. It's been months since I've actually looked through this project. Oh, I was just using a ring mod in the modular thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, that shit was just a ring mod. Yay for ring mods! That'd be a cool sound.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Ha! I'll have to revisit that. Okay. So, now, I think that pretty much covers a majority of what I wanted to cover for this song. Yeah. Okay. I think we're going to load up the next one. We're not going to save changes to this. I think that would be a perfect time to go through some questions. Sorry, I haven't really been checking the chat as much. Let's see what you guys got. If you guys, again, like I said, if you have any questions, please let me know. What does ring mod actually do? That is a solid question that I will have to come back to. Mastering chain, I can show it in when the next project is loaded. How do you feel about hard curve saturation in your sub as long as you compensate for loudness in the mix? There's really nothing wrong with that. It's when you it's really dependent on what the song needs. Like, you'd usually use like a hard curved saturator on a sub if you want something that has like a nice low mid sub to it, like a trap song, or something to that effect. But if you were working with something like, say, dubstep, I'd say it's better to have like a cleaner sub. That's just my opinion, though. People tell you different things, but anyway. Yeah, I mean, as long as, like I said, as long as you compensate for what you're doing to the sub, then you should be fine. I asked this before, but it may have been buried. Do you make drops or intros builds first? Generally speaking, I tend to make drops first, or like an idea for a drop first. And then I'll kind of build everything around that. On some rare instances, I have, like, had a really, really good idea for a verse or build or some sort of element outside of the drop, and then kind of built around that. But yeah, I'd say for the most part, it's usually starting with like experimenting with some sound or like some element that's in the drop that can like kind of build the rest of the song around it. Ring mod, I don't think... Is ring mod amplitude modulation? I don't think ring mod is. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. I just know that it's really, really cool. It's like... With ring modulation, it's I think it's... You're modulating the sound with the frequency, with just like a fixed frequency. I believe that's it. Like, say for instance, by the way, we have extraterrestrial VIP loaded up. We're gonna go over the first part of that song that I did. But like with ring mod, I believe it's just like, okay, let's say it's a long hell no. We'll turn this into a group. What is this? Yeah. With ring modulation, I believe it is just, yeah, it's just whenever you get to higher and higher frequencies, it just gets wonkier and wonkier. Yeah, I believe that's it. Do you ever use analog to make risers? Never thought about that, but that actually sounds like a great idea. For some reason, shift frequencies making them sound like yoys yays. Yeah, I'm fairly confident ring modulation is literally just modulating a sound with a fixed frequency. Or not fixed frequency, but a fixed wave. It's just like modulating it with almost just another oscillator. But it's just like... I think. I don't know. I could be just talking out of my ass. Anywho, let's keep this going. How do you make your bases or base layers whine? Let's see, I saw you ask this before, but what do you mean by whine? How do I make a bass or base layer whine? I mean, if it's what I think it is, it's usually just like grain delay or some shit. Anywho, now we got the extraterrestrial VIP. Yes, self oscillation. Ring modulation is usually just self oscillation. So we have extraterrestrial. Oh shit, I need to turn this down. I guess we can go over the mastering chain really quick. I hate to break it to you guys, but this is it. This is my mastering chain. You can use it if you want. I mean, I use a variation of it now where I just add isotopes, isotope ozone with. No, what's it called? Just like with whatever stuff. I don't want to look it up because it's like right at the tip of my tongue. What's it called? Imager. Ozone imager. Yes, that's it. Ozone's imager right before the multi-man, and I'll have a Gullfoss and probably, depending on how I'm feeling, I'll have Fab Filters Pro L right here just to like, catch anything that might be overflowing from the glue compressor, or just to push the sound a little bit more. But yeah, for the most part, I don't go super in depth with mastering. It's usually I use it as a tool just to make everything louder. For me, any issues in the master is going to be fixed in the mix down. I can dig it. It kind of sounds like a pitch down, but constantly shepherd. Oh, you mean like that? Oh, well, for dig it, that was just basically using. For dig it, I believe it was just it was basically just using ring modulation, EQing out everything besides the tones that I wanted to use, and just kind of focusing on that. Maybe adding some erosion to it. I don't know. Anywho, we got extraterrestrial VIP. I mean, for the most part, you guys know how these verses go. We just kind of make some shit that's super atmospheric. We have some drums. They filter in. You know, it's a kick and a snare with some hi-hats. We have this ARP thing that's literally just like the crux of the intro that I took from what is it? June Miller sample pack. We got the build up. Introducing the elements of the drop.
Where do you come from?
Oh shit! All right, guys. I hope you're ready because this is it. This is the extraterrestrial sound. Are you guys ready for it? I think this is the first time I've actually ever shown this sound off, because it sounds like it's a bunch of layers, but it's literally just one thing. It's literally just one thing. Don't know why ozone's on there. Comes from this. The crux of the sound is these two metallic corpuses. Metallic rezos that have been adjusted a little bit. Yeah. And then the grain delay to add that next layer up. OTT it. And then the secret weapon. Erosion. Yeah, it's pretty much erosion. And then for the VIP, obviously, just bounced it down into this freeze and then just pitched it up. Like, you can see it right there. It goes from like, yeah, just keep the stack going on. Yeah, really for like all the variations of that like original extraterrestrial sound, it's usually just some minor change, whether it be like I believe for this one it was, I can't remember what it was. It might have been just, I think it was just affecting the pitch bend. And like, you know, playing with some other characteristics. But point is, like, they're all based around the same sound. And then what I would do is I would take like that core sound, bounce it down, and then continue to fuck with it some more for like the second section. Yeah, this is literally just bouncing that down, affecting the pitch, adding some more grain delay on it. I mean, without it. Just make it even wider. Why the frick not? This was back before I really knew the consequences of using too much grain delay, or too much of Ableton's grain delay. The problem with Ableton's grain delay is that if you misuse it, it can make your shit sound super out of phase whenever it's summed to mono. I mean, that's also why for most of these utilities I'll have inverted the right or left phase, because you just sound a little better in mono. How do you make sustain bass? That oh, you mean when you say sustain based? Just this thing. Yeah. We got a few things going on here. I think the crux of the sound comes from this. Yeah, and that was a company thing. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, I just kind of treated it as an 808. Yeah. I don't know. The like sub was more or less just like a beefier version of the sub that we had in the original song. I mean, because this was used for originally from a different section. I think this was originally in the second drop of Extraterrestrial, and I liked it a lot, so I just took it and layered it on with this and turned it the fudge up. And then this got this cool little extra layer too. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but like, just kidding, it does a lot. Yeah, this is just kind of like the wider, like I said, when layering stuff, I like to have one that's like straight to the point, or like a few layers that are straight to the point, and then one or two layers that are like super characteristic to like give the sound some extra tonality and some extra, dare I say, character. Yeah, and then just hard compress that shit. Yeah, but I mean, for that extra weird layer, I guess I can go into it. I think it's just like some wonky ass shit. No. Oh, cool, it's just a sub. And sometimes I just kind of, sometimes I'm like a dog chasing a car. Don't know what I'm going to do when I get it, but I know what I'm going to do when I get there. Nope, that didn't work either. I'm bad at metaphors. Point is, I just kind of started doing shit to tracks, and then you kind of lose sight of what the original sound was. Yeah. I think the main crux of this was, this erosion? Yeah. It's generally erosion, like, erosion when used smart can be, like, super, super fun for layers. Yeah, and then some, saturation to it, too. Boy, you got yourself a stew. Okay. We'll freeze that. Yeah, so, like, if anything, this was, like, Extraterrestrial VIP was meant to be more of, like, I mean, I know Extraterrestrial was a pretty, like, sound design flexy song, but this was meant to be more of, like, the live version, the one to get you more energetic with even more crazier sounds coming at you. It's Extraterrestrial 2 this Sunday. So yeah. With these, you know, cutting up that sound, pitching it, I believe for this part, yeah, adding some frequency shifters to it to make it seem like it's dipping. I call that the lazy man's pitch bend. Also, it adds some cool characteristics to it. Oh yeah, and this is the first song that I used the "How'd You Do That" sample on it too. So I thought it'd be cool if like, just halfway through the drop, when like there's that like short little break that you'd expect, the song just kind of stops, and it's like, yeah.
How did you do that?
What? What did you say?
Here's another one.
So the fun thing about this is that by itself, this sounds awful. Like it's literally just like that extraterrestrial sound, but with a held note. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, because the original extraterrestrial is like some. Ooh, that's kind of cool. What if we did this? Point is, there's like a lot of fun stuff you can do. For this one, I just wanted a held note. Yeah, and then we got the FN bass. I don't know if you guys have or I don't know if they're even out, but if you don't know, FN is an awesome producer who, in his spare time, made a bunch of packs of these like ridiculous glitches that just have some of the crazy shit in there. And what I like to do is apply some different chains that I've used in other tracks to them, and just like, you know, warp them around, and they just make such great layers. Like, if you're wondering the swagga, this is what I call my swagga chain. It is what I use for the throwing elbows, flip, for all of those sounds, like mix down wise. And yeah, I just like to use it for dubsteppy stuff sometimes, just to make things like quickly beefing them up, because I mean, without it, it's like all the dynamics are all over the place. It's quiet as shit. But with this on it, oh, we got dubstep going together. Oh, lots of high end. But then we add in that sub. Oh boy, that sub. Yeah. And then we have all these cool fills that are pretty much from the original. Which, I mean, what's this? Do not remember that one. Oh yeah! Oh, I remember that one now. Yeah, that's pretty much like this. This is why I don't use this rack, or like the processing that I use for extraterrestrial. I don't use it often for other things, because really, besides changing the erosion, there's not a whole lot you can do to like get interesting stuff out of the sound, as proven by using that same chain on this Minesweeper bass. It literally just sounds like, you know, that erosion-y goodness that makes the extraterrestrial lead sound so cool. We got these company layers for the fills. Just like super subtle stuff. Really good stuff. God, I remember it was, oh man, what was it? We were at, I think, Icon, whenever we were finishing up extraterrestrial, and most of the time that we spent in like their studio there, we just spent it like cutting up little tiny things to make these like really overly complex fills, just seeing how ridiculous we could get with them. And then yeah, cut some of those up and use them for this. Like, I mean, shit, this. Yeah, that was a fun one that we used a lot. Then we got something like... Yeah. And then, yeah, we got, we have this easy wash here for, it was originally for this part in Extraterrestrial, the, like... Yeah. Also, if you don't know, bass clef's easy washout is awesome for, like, adding super quick, reverb. It's like, you know, how in some trap songs they'll be like, like with that super reverbed out sound. It's usually some sort of like reverb washout with like OTT attached to it. Yeah, this one's like... Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Don't know what clip shifter is. I think this is what Kyle was using for side chaining, but I just reverted back to mine. Yeah, I mean, there's not like a whole lot to discuss when it comes to like songs like Extraterrestrial. It's honestly why I haven't really gone in depth into it before, but because at the end of the day, it's just a sound designy song. And when it comes to sound designy songs, there's not usually a whole lot of interesting stuff going on. It's usually just like, oh wow, you made something really cool and unique for the drop. I like that. Ho ho. Oh, this is gonna make me headbang. You know? Now I guess we can go over the drums. Drums are pretty straightforward. I think it's Fabian Mazur, like, from one of his older splice packs. It's just this kick low low. It sounds so good. Especially when you add on this old processing that I used for kicks and snares. Why is this on there? Why is that on there? What the heck is going on? Has this been on the whole time? Interesting. I just found something new about my track. I guess this was something that Kyle put on there. I never even noticed that. Ha! Okay, cool. Well, that's a fun combo. I might have to revisit that. So it's like, because before I used the whole kick and snare send, I used to use this rack that, I don't know, I call it the kick snare rack. It basically just takes any simple sample and just beats the fuck out of it. So I mean, without, we can even unfreeze this. Whoops, yeah. So I mean, without that rack, this kick is just, with it, it's like, just like destroys it. Then we got the snares. I found out while we were working on the Icon, or at the Icon studio while we were working on the song originally, or the original song, that Kyle snuck in one of my snares from my old sample pack in there, and I was like, you sneaky devil. That's, yeah. So then I just layered this in there. Yeah, I don't know, this is like my go-to snare layer. I hate to break it to you guys, but I don't think it's available anywhere. It came from my friend's sample pack, who, my friend's kind of crazy and has multiple times like gone through and deleted all of his stuff. But at one point he did have a sample pack out there, and it had this snare in there, and I use it for a lot of dubstep stuff because it's just perfect. It's like the perfect amount of like thumpy and high-endy. Not in this case because I had to EQ it, but yeah. And then the drop, you know, just had some silent future sent out to the wide. Oh, I can go over some of the other racks I use because, you know, we have the width snare. I have this other, it's just basically like parallel compression. It's just if I ever have an element that's like, it sounds like it's not cutting through the mix enough, I will, if it's not cutting through the mix enough, I'll just, you know, send, like, say if this hi-hat wasn't hitting, if it wasn't coming through the mix loud enough, I just send it to the parallel compression, and then boom, kind of like beefs it up a little bit. You know, it's all about that balancing act. Yeah, then just another cymbal. Again, with a little bit of sass and character to it. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, this is a pretty straightforward track. Yeah, I don't know, I think that will pretty much cover it. So I think for the last little portion of this, as much fun as this has been, I'm a tired boy. So I might be taking a leave soon, but let's get some questions in before I do. What processing did you put on that kick? The processing on the kick, it had, this easy washout. I believe these two things were just for the build. Just to, add some tension to the build. Just adding some washout to it. And the thing with this washout is that when it's turned, the more it turns up, the louder it'll make the overall signal. So it's good to have utility just to turn it down a little bit. And then yeah, the other processing was this glue compressor and saturator, with apparently an EQ that cuts out everything below 74. Which I did not know was a thing. What do you do when you're feeling creatively blocked? I would say the biggest thing I like to do whenever I'm feeling writer's block is to try making something that I haven't tried making in a while, or just trying to get out of whatever I'm doing. Because I think it's a problem that I know I've faced a lot when I was starting out, is that I get so obsessed with one song and kind of obsess over it. And the more I obsessed over it, the more I would overmix it. And the more I'd overmix it, the more it would sound like shit. And it just make me obsess over it even more. Sometimes it's good to just take a step back, accept that maybe you're not going to have the right answers right now. Maybe come back to it later. If you're feeling burnt out on a certain style or something, maybe try, say if you've been making dubstep for a while and you're starting to feel burnt out, maybe try making a house song. It doesn't have to come out, but it's just, it doesn't hurt. You can just try other things. There were some other questions I saw in there. Hold on, I'm trying to get back up to it. Sorry. Do you typically design your sounds within the song?
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Song you're creating, or during a separate sound design session? It'll usually start off as me making a sound, or trying to create a sound, and then building the song around that sound, or that idea that I have for either the drop or anything. Say for this one, the idea for the drop was extraterrestrial, but wouldn't it be cool if we just held out that intro thingy and it was because you expect that snare to come in, but then it doesn't, and then it just repeats, and then you're like, wait, oh shit, there's a riser coming, and then you're like, oh, it's a build. That was basically the idea behind Extraterrestrial VIP. Everything else after that was just gravy. But yeah, for the most part, I will, all the sound design you hear will be made within that project or with that song in mind. Though I have started, creating my own little secret sample pack that I'll draw from. So, if I'm feeling not really having a specific sound in mind, but knowing I want to make something really nutty, I'll usually draw from that sample pack and continue to fuck up those samples. How do you make sure when you use frequency shifter you are in key? There's kind of a secret to that. I never make sure I'm in key whenever I'm using frequency shifter. That liberally. If I'm using it willy-nilly, going all over the place, the last thing I'm thinking about is the key of the song. Which is kind of why I like doing all of my super weird sound designy stuff before I try writing the song. Because it'll usually be make something with frequency shifter that's going all sorts of craziness, and then establish the key. Because once you have that like crazy sound going and you can kind of pinpoint where the sub is, then you can build everything else around that. Tips on workflow to get shit done faster, easier. I think a big thing that has helped me with workflow is having these little color coordinated, especially just having the plugins that I'm like, yes, these are the plugins that I love using. Or like, here's a bunch of cool forgotten samples that, like, if you want something weird or like, getting tired of using the samples that I'm using, I'll go in here, find something weird, and then build off of that. I have some for like just samples that I've been like, oh, that might be cool to come back and build on or use later. Good drums for like my go-to drums that I might go back and switch out later. And then just general effects if I need a riser right now, or like I need just some placeholder. I've definitely been using more and more placeholders just so I can go in, get the idea done, and then come back later, be like, okay, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. This works. This kind of works. This might work. It's all about just getting the idea out as fast as possible, so when you can take a step back and see what the track needs. Sometimes, you might think the track needs one thing, but whenever you take a step back and view it as a whole, you kind of realize that's not what it needed. Like say you get really into, like, say if an extraterrestrial, if the original version had like a super melodic-y break, taking a step back and being like, this probably isn't the right thing for this song. Like, it might sound cool by itself, but if it doesn't fit the context of the song, then you're just kind of writing in sections instead of a cohesive song. Get some more questions in. Do you ever do private tutoring? I'm actually thinking about starting that up. I'm trying to work out the logistics of it, but keep an eye. I might be doing some private tutoring. Maybe like, instead of strict private tutoring, more like helping people develop their ideas within a song. Today I exported a track. Listening to it through Windows Media Player, the quality is extremely flat and not like how it sounds in Ableton. I also tried resampling the master, and the same thing happened. That might honestly have to do with Windows Media Player. Especially if you're playing it on the same source, like on the same sound card and everything, where it should sound one way. I would say it's either I guess it could be how you're bouncing it out. That's a question for greater audio minds than my own. Like, as much as I love mixing down stuff, and like how much I love how sound is affected, when it comes down to like the technical side of things, I'm generally at a loss. I mean, I know for the most part what to do. Okay, how do you usually fatten up a thin sound? There's a few ways to do it. I mean, I already have a few things built in. I would say if you want to beef up a thin sound, there's a few things you could do. Saturate it, add some widening effects to it, like whether it be chorus or if you have it, a fun chorus plugin to use is Chorus. There's some like fun. Yes, the logistics are to fry. Yeah, it's for the most part it's just trying to widen the sound without like making it overly wide. If you want, you can even have two layers where like you have the mono signal of the sound and then the wide sound where you just like put a bunch of like chorus and reverb on the wide sound, and so you still have like mono with whatever. Yeah, Kevin, can you show that swagger chain before you run, brother? I can. You know what? This will be it. This will be it, guys. This is the last thing. This is actually one of my prouder chains. What it comes down to is these two plugins aren't super crucial, especially the first one, because Enigma Stereo is just a waves plugin that just adds like a little bit of like width to the sound. It's honestly not super crucial, and oftentimes I just take it off. And it just adds a little bit of width. Guitar Stomp, though, this is pretty dang fun to use. Another waves plugin. I've always been interested, like, ever since like I've gotten into music, I've always been interested in, like, honestly, like, guitar pedal effects. Even been wanting to like buy my own guitar pedals that can send audio out into it, like say a bass serum, whatever, it could send it out into a guitar pedal, affect it, and then back into Ableton. I've always wanted to do that. Point is, this Waves plugin kind of gave me the chance to do that without actually having to buy some stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's just like a little bit of vibrato, like a tiny bit of vibrato, along with some like just crunchy compression. It's really the compression that does it. Vocoder OTT is a fun old trick to make it sound super wet. Another fun thing to do is pitch tracking on the vocoder. But that takes a little bit more time to like actually get a good sound. With vocoder, it just, I don't know, it's like a fun filter that once you put OTT after it and turn the output up, it just creates this like super beefy, almost like snailsy sound. Then some trash to it, you know, just good old fucking distorting the mids, and then kind of subtly boosting the highs. Because honestly, what I use trash for a lot of times is to add some top end distortion, or like top end warmth, through multi-bands and just like this garage fuzz on the top end, and then just do it to taste. Because I mean, you could be like, oh, that's too much white noise, so just kind of back it down. Like that's good. It just adds a little bit. Because I mean, without it, yeah, just adds in some lost characteristics. LFO tool to reshape the wub after you do all this processing. Cutting out an EQ, and then glue compression to just beef it back up again. Yeah. Okay, one last question. What techniques really helped you early on and changed the way you produce? Ugh. That's actually really tough to say, because a lot of the techniques that I used early on when I started off, I do not use anymore. Like, not at all. That shit, I mean, producing is one of those things where you'll spend months thinking you have the right way to, say, mix down a sub, or mix down a lead, or a snare, and then you find one piece of information that just makes you go, fuck, I've been doing everything wrong this whole time. And then when you go back to apply it, you might find another technique for another sound or process that you learn. It's an ever adapting, ever evolving process, and I don't know, you just kind of have to keep an open mind and accept that when it comes to production, making music, mix sounds, you're never going to know everything. But you're never going to know everything, so lean into what you can do well while you learn how to do everything else. Like, when I started off, I knew how to do sub basses so well, so I leaned in on more like subby stuff, or like stuff that didn't really need a whole lot of like processing for the leads. It was just kind of focused on the energy. But now that like I know how to do more stuff, I'm like starting to incorporate more technical things into my songs. It's an evolving process. Always keep learning and never give up. It's something you gotta always do. With all that being said, I think that is a perfect time to close this down. I want to thank Defire for bringing me on to do this. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been so much fun. Hope you guys learned something from my ramblings for an hour and a half. And until next time, I guess I'll see you guys later. thanks for having me on, and well, see you guys later.